Today I'm going to teach you how to make faux fur poms for your hats. You will need a 5x5 quilter square ruler. I got mine at Joann's. You will need some tapestry needles. I like to look for ones that are really sharp or have a nice pointy edge. It helps get through the fabric easier. You'll need a rotary cutter with the perforation blade, some Poly-Fil, 1.5 millimeter poly cord, or you could also use 2 millimeter. It's a little thicker. It works the same. You need some measuring tape and a pair of scissors and your faux fur fabric. To start out, you want to get your fabric and your 5x5 ruler. You can also use a regular ruler if you can't find one or you don't have one. I cut out 5x5s. When I cut out my fur, I take a day and just cut the whole fabric. It helps cut down on time when you're making your poms, and you only have to clean up the mess once because it does get pretty messy. You'll have fur everywhere. But you'll want to cut it out 5x5. I also use a Sharpie and just kind of line, so when I go to cut, I just know the lines, like where to cut. Sometimes you can get lucky with a fabric and put a little notch in the end and tear it and it'll cut a straight line. But sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes it can go crooked and you don't really want that. So take your 5x5 ruler or regular ruler and go about 1/4 inch from the edge of your fabric. Take your rotary cutter with the perforation edge or blade and cut along each edge of the fabric. You just go around like this. I like to use a ruler. It helps me keep the line a little bit straight. Now you will want to cut a 26-inch cord. You can use any length you want. I think a 26-inch cord works really well. For poms, it gives you enough room to tie your poms on, to double knot it. That's the length I usually use. Next, you will get your pointy needle. Whatever needle you want to use. You can use a tapestry needle, you can use a regular sewing needle, whichever one you can find that has a big enough hole for the size of cord that you're using. So I start from the outside of the fabric and come in about halfway on one edge of your fabric, and I leave about that much out. Next, if you just pull your fabric a little bit, you'll be able to see the holes that the rotary cutter made. So you'll go out the fabric and then back in. And you'll just continue to do this till you reach your first edge of your fabric. Now when you pull, you don't want to pull all of your cord through. Leave a little bit of this cord out. So to start, just come back in. Sometimes your cord will catch fur. I just go back out, kind of fluff it up, give it a pull. You'll be able to fix all this at the end. Find your holes and continue to just weave in and out. Down your fabric. I think using the rotary cutter just makes it easier. You don't have to push so hard through the fabric because some fabric will be really hard to get a needle through. This fabric that I use, I like it because the backing it's not thick and it's just very easy to sew through. Now for your next edge, give it a little pull, and when you pull the fabric, you can see that the holes they show up easier. And then you can just go right through. Same for this edge, give it a little pull so those, oh, sometimes your cord does come out. Just rethread it and move on. Now when I come back to my starting point, I like to end the same way, just with my cord to the outside of the fabric. Then you just give your strings a little tug. Grab your Poly-Fil. You can use however much you want. If you use a lot, your palm is gonna be a lot bigger. Like this one, it's pretty big. I think I used probably a good amount of Poly-Fil in there to get this one the size that it is. The gray one, this one is a little bit smaller. It's still a 5x5 piece of fabric. It just depends how much Poly-Fil I put in it, and it also depends like if it's a little heavier. I like to stick to about this size, and I give it a little roll in a ball. Put it in there and pull and just stuff. Just keep tightening your cords and stuffing the Poly-Fil in there. Now you want to tie. I like to tie through twice, like I'd like to loop through twice. I feel like this gives just a tighter knot in the beginning so nothing gets loosened. You want to tie that pretty tight. And then just make a knot, give it another tug. At this point, you can go around and see if there is any place that your fur might have got tucked. I take a needle like this and just go through and see if anywhere got caught under the cord. And just kind of give it a little fluffing. Make sure nothing is stuck. All right, next you're going to pull it apart and try to find the opposite end of where you tied your first knot. So you can see this is where I ended down here, and this is the opposite end. So what I like to do is rethread my needle and go over to this side and just find a spot and go through that fabric there, and then do the same thing. Loop it through twice. So once, twice, tie it pretty tight, do one knot, and then I just extra security, do one more knot. And once it's on, you can't really tell. You can't see the bottom of the fabric at all. Maybe a little if you're looking. If there's any spots that you don't like that's showing too much, just take your needle and your cord and just go through it like this. And do another knot. It's really not going to hurt anything. It just makes it close better. Every palm's different. Sometimes you have a lot showing, sometimes you don't. I prefer to get mine as tightly shut as possible so it's not showing any of the stuffing, any of the edges. It's just a nice, secure palm. If your palms get flat, like in this fabric here, you can see this crease right here, which really wouldn't look the greatest when you go to make the palm. I take a spray bottle and just lightly get it wet and kind of run a comb through it. Once I make my palm, I take a hair dryer on the lowest setting, and I keep it a good 3 to 6 inches away from the palm, and I just fluff the palm up with a hair dryer. It brings the palm back to life. Like I did it for this one. You can just see how fluffy it is. The same with this one. It just, I don't know, it just brings the palm alive and just makes it so fluffy. You can just see how fluffy that is. I also do that before I ship a hat. I do it before all of my markets. I just like to have my palms as fluffy looking as possible, and using a hair dryer on a low setting, it's just amazing. And getting it wet will take this kink out of it and make it look like this. So that's all you need to do to make a faux fur palm. It's super easy. I think using a square instead of a circle wastes less, and it's just so much easier. Instead of cutting every circle, you just cut these straight lines and it turns into the perfect palm. If you have any questions, let me know, and I hope this helps.